Once upon a time, there were two kingdoms, Kediri and Jangala. The two of kingdoms that came from a kingdom called Kahirapan. The Grants king in the kingdom split into two parts in order to avoid civil war. But before dying, king advised that the kingdom was to be put back together. So both the king also agreed to reunite the two kingdoms by marrying the heir apparent Jangala, Raden Panji Asmarbangan with daughter from Kediri, Dewi Sekartaji. Sekartaji's stepmother, the king's concubines from Kediri, did not want to get married with Raden Panji Sekartaji because he wanted only her own biological daughter later when became Queen Jangala. Then stepmother locked up and hid Sekartaji. At the time of Raden Panji come to Kediri to marry Sekartaji, the daughter had disappeared. Raden Panji very disappointed. Stepmother Sekartaji persuaded him to remain married to his daughter as a substitute Sekartaji, but Raden Panji refused. Raden Panji then ventured. He changed his name to Ande-Ande Lumut. One day he arrived at the village of Dadapan. He met a widow who was called Mbak Randa Dadapan. Mbak Randa liked him as her child, and since then he lived at Mbak Randa house. Ande-Ande Lumut then asked her adoptive mother, Mbak Randa, to announce that he was looking for a candidate's wife. So came all the girls from villages around Dadapan to apply to the Ande-Ande Lumut's invitation. No one he received as his wife. Meanwhile, Sekartaji managed to get free of herself from captivity of stepmother. She intended to find Raden Panji. He traveled to arrive at the house of a widow who had 3 daughters, Klenthing Abang, Klenthing Ijo and the youngest Klenthing Biru. The widowed mother accepted her as a child and named Klenthing Kuning. Klenthing Kuning asked to complete daily work of cleaning the house, doing the laundry and cleaning kitchen appliances. On a day, because of fatigue, Klenthing Kuning cried. Suddenly a large crane came. Klenthing Kuning almost running scared. However, Stork said, "Do not be afraid, I have come to help." Stork flicked their wings and all the clothes that should be washed by Klenthing Kuning changed into clean. Kitchen utensils were also be cleaned. After that, the crane flied back. Stork was back every day to help Klenthing Kuning. On one day the stork told about Ande-Ande Lumut to Klenthing Kuning and told her to go apply. Klenthing Kuning asked permission to the adoptive mother to go to Dadapan. Her mother let her go when the job was finished. He then said Klenthing Kuning wash him clothes as much as possible so that he could not go. Meanwhile, the widow took 3 daughters to Dadapan to apply Ande-Ande Lumut. On the way they came to a very wide river. There was no bridge or boat passing. They were confused. Then they saw a giant crab came to them. "My name is Yuyu Kangkang. You want get across?" They of course wanted. "Of course, you have to give in return," said Yuyu. "You want money?" "How much?" asked the widow. "I do not want your money. Your daughters were beautiful. I wanted them to kiss." They were shocked to hear the answer Yuyu Kangkang. But they have no other choice. Finally they agreed. The giant crab was ferrying them one by one and they also gave a kiss in return. At home, Mbak Randa, they requested a meeting with Ande-Ande Lumut. Mbak Randa knocked Ande-Ande Lumut room. He said, "My son, behold, these beautiful girls want to propose as one as your wife." "Mother," said Ande-Ande Lumut, "tell them, I do not want to take a lover Yuyu Kangkang as my wife." Widow and 3 daughters were surprised to hear the answer Ande-Ande Lumut. How the young man knew that they had met with the giant crab. With them went home disappointed. At home, Klenthing Kuning had completed all of its work with the help of a magical stork. Stork was giving her a piece of stick. When the stepmother back Klenthing Kuning once again asked permission to go see Ande-Ande Lumut. Stepmother was forced to allow, but she deliberately applying chicken manure Klenthing Kuning back to. Klenthing Kuning went. He came in large rivers. Giant crab that came to offer services to take her across the river. "Pretty girl, you want to go other side? Let me get you across," said Yuyu Kangkang. "No, thanks," Klenthing Kuning said as she walked away. "Come on, you do not have to pay," Yuyu Kangkang said again. "No." Klenthing Kuning was whipping stick, giving Yuyu Kangkang with storks. giant crab was running scared. Klenthing Kuning approached the edge of the river and hit it once again. The water of the river opened, and she was able to walk in the bottom of the river to the opposite. Klenthing Kuning finally arrived to Mbok Randa's huas. Mbok Randa accepted it, wrinkling his nose as the Klenthing Kuning's clothes that there was a smell of chicken manure. She also invited the girl came and she went into the room Ande-Ande Lumut. Ande, my son, there was a beautiful girl, but you do not need to see her. Her clothes is so smell at all, like the smell of chicken manure. Should I send her home? I will see her first, Mom, said Ande-Ande Lumut. But, she, said Random Mbok. She was the only girl who crossed without help. Yuyu Kangkang, mother. She is the girl that I've been waiting for. Mbok Randa was silent. She followed Ande-Ande Lumut to meet the girl. Klenthing Kuning was surprised to see Ande-Ande Lumut as her fiancé, Raden Panji Asmarbangan. Sekartaji, finally we meet again, said Raden Panji. Raden Panji then brought Sekartaji and Mbok Randa Dada Pan to Jangala. Raden Panji and Sekartaji were married. Kediri Kingdom and Jangala also reunited. The end.